Hello and welcome to White Glove Reviews. In this video, what I want to do is I want to talk about audiobooks. And in particular, I want to give y'all eventually my audiobook report on The Rook, a novel by Daniel O'Malley. Now, first though, what I want to do is I want to talk about why I decided to try out these videos about audiobooks, and also a little bit about my general taste in audiobooks. And what I hope is that by making these videos, it'll help y'all possibly find audiobooks that you may enjoy. Now, the flip side of this is if y'all have any audiobooks that you think I may enjoy, or any books, books or audiobooks, but if you have any of these books or audiobooks that you think I might enjoy, let me know in the comments, because I've started to run into the problem where I'm kind of, it gets harder and harder to find good audiobooks because I tend to burn through audiobooks really quickly. And I listen to them when I'm driving, when I'm doing work that doesn't necessarily require all of my mental attention, like I'm doing something with my hands, that kind of thing, but doesn't require all my mental attention. I'll listen to an audiobook, and I tend to go through them pretty quick. Now, taste-wise, the kind of audiobooks that I tend to like is I often prefer fantasy and sci-fi. Now, I've started dabbling into more urban fantasy, I guess, and even a little bit of historical fiction, and a few kind of the alternate historical fiction. Like, I listened to a book a while back called Timmer, a series of books that were the Timmer series that were set in the Napoleonic Wars, only they have dragons. So I've sort of verged a little bit beyond just pure sci-fi and fantasy. And like taste-wise, books like, say, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Heinlein, Starship Troopers, Stranger in a Strange Land, all these are basically just kind of classics. Although, man, Stranger in a Strange Land is a weird book. But also, like I recently, not too long ago, listened to the Ancillary Justice trilogy, or the Imperial Radich trilogy. I'm probably saying that wrong, and I enjoyed that as well. So I mean, like there's a big range of sci-fi and fantasy, and the one I want to talk about today though is I want to talk about The Rook. And The Rook by Daniel O'Malley was kind of one of those books that surprised me. I listened to it because of the hook. And the hook is the main character, Miffany Thomas, and they spell Miffany in such a weird way. I could have never pronounced it had I not listened to the audiobook. But the setup is Miffany Thomas wakes up standing in a London park in the rain, surrounded by dead bodies. And all of the dead bodies are wearing rubber gloves. And she has no memory of how she got there. And what it turns out is, and I'm going to try not to give any spoilers or anything, but what it turns out is she knew she was going to lose her memory. And so she left herself a series of letters to help her survive what's coming up. And Miffany works for a covert government organization in London called the SciFi. And again, thanks to the audiobook, I can probably pronounce that. And the setup for the SciFi, what it is they're an organization of people with, for lack of a better term, superpowers of varying levels of scariness. And by varying levels of scariness, I mean in either The Rook or the sequel, The Stiletto, they mention someone whose power is the ability to accelerate the growth of tubers, meaning I'm assuming potatoes and I guess radishes and whatnot. And there's also a person who they imply is more dangerous than a nuclear weapon. So, yeah, there's a range of power levels. And the deal with the SciFi is they're a chess-based organization, thus the name The Rook. And their job is to protect London and the public from other bad stuff. And it's really a rather entertaining book. And, well, one thing I do have to say about the book, and I'm trying not to give any spoilers away, but If you watch the recent TV series, it is not really related to the book. They have the same name, and the main character's name is the same, but it's kind of as close as it gets. Like, the book doesn't even have the plot about they're trying to sell people with the superpowers at auction kind of thing. That doesn't exist. The book is pretty much trying to solve the mystery of what happened to Miffy and, you know, the what's going on in her organization. And that, I don't know where the plot about them auctioning off superpowered people came from the TV series. It has as much in common. The Rook book has as much in common with the Rook TV series as the World War Z book has in common with the movies. They both have the same name. They both have zombies, but yeah, that's about it. Anyway, it's actually a surprisingly enjoyable book. It's funny, and I did enjoy it. And one of the I don't know what you call it, the guidelines I have for how good a book was is if I immediately want to listen to the sequel, or if I immediately want to listen to the next 12 books. And I did immediately want to listen to the sequel to The Rook. So it's something, I mean, like, it's, if you're looking for kind of a urban fantasy type book, it's really not a bad choice. And I'm hoping that Daniel O'Malley is going to write a sequel to or a third book maybe in the trilogy, because he wrote The Stiletto, which is the sequel. I'll include links to everything I talk about in the description if you want to check these out, because, you know, I mean, like, if you've never listened to an audiobook and you want to give one a try, I think Amazon has a free trial thing. If you probably have noticed from the video, I'm just basically using video from my computer from the website for reference. I didn't really know how to do the video for these, so I figure I'll just talk and see. Anyway, the audiobook for The Rook, it's just under 18 hours, and it's a pretty solid listen. I mean, like, it's not at all... I didn't finish it, and I was like, oh. And Suzanne Duerden, I'm hoping I'm not mispronouncing her name, I thought she did a good job as the narrator. The only thing is, if you watch the TV series, they're just not at all alike. And I watched the TV series after having listened to the audiobook, and I feel like it might have made me more unforgiving toward the TV series, but there's so little in common with the two. I don't understand why they didn't just use different names. I mean, just call the TV series something different. So anyway, if you're looking for an interesting, kind of fun urban fantasy, I guess it's urban fantasy novel, The Rook is worth giving a shot. Plus, one thing that didn't show in the TV series was this Rook has a vampire. Anyway, if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments. I'll include links in the description for everything I talk about. And I'll also include a link for The Stiletto if you want to check out the second book. And aside from the observation that if you belong to a chess-themed organization like the Chicay, where there are rooks and bishops and... I don't think they called them knights. I think they called them like... They called them like chevaliers, which I feel like that translates to cavalier. Maybe like lieutenant translates into lieutenant. But anyway, if you're in a chess-themed organization, you probably don't want a job title of pawn. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please let me know and like and subscribe. And I hope y'all have an excellent day.